The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy.
Motherfucker, I am full of fucking joy. I have fought my depression and won. I have found so much in life to bring me happiness, and I look around at my friends of a similar age to me, and I see the same thing echoed again and again and again. I am a millennial. Millennials are adults now. We've been adults for a while. I'm 33. I am not the oldest of millennials. Many people are fucking millennials, and boomers seem to have this really weird thing about like anyone younger than them is a millennial. Gen X and Gen Z often get roped in with us Gen Y folks, and seem to believe that, you know, we are just entitled, lazy slackers who have had the world handled to them on a platter. And this, I suspect, is a video about that. So let's have fun mocking their bullshit, shall we? There we go. Because I want to paint my minis, because I'm a fucking nerd. Nerd.
What's the millennial question?
Apparently, millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic.
Now, is this from a millennial rebutting this point? Now, everything I've seen from this channel so far has been like pretty conservative and reactionary, so my hopes aren't high.
Self-interested, unfocused, lazy.
So I don't think any of these things are true of us as a generation. I mean, every generation has people who may be described as these things.
But entitled is the big one. And because they confound leadership so much, what's happening is leaders are asking the millennials, what do you want? And millennials are saying, we want to work in a place with purpose, love that. We want to make an impact, you know.
So when it comes to entitled, like, I'm going to use generalizations here and hashtag not all boomers. There are some great boomers out there. I know some fucking lovely ones. But this idea that kind of millennials are entitled and everything has been handed to them on a platter. No, it fucking hasn't been handed to us on a platter. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, the boomers took one of the strongest economies ever created and ran it into the fucking ground. Here in Australia, Australian boomers got free tertiary education and then voted to take that away from later generations. They benefited from cheap housing markets and coming into a strong economy that was built off the high taxation era of the greatest generation, their parents, which was the generation that went through World War II. And they took that and their entitlement ran the fucking global economy into the ground and has propelled later generations into eras of uncertain work, ramping up climate instability, and they refuse to take fucking responsibility for the results of their own actions. Again, not all boomers, but if we want to talk about which generations might be a bit entitled, if we want to talk about which generations might be a bit selfish or fucking things up for other people or like overestimating their own contributions to the world and society.
No, whatever that means. We want free food and beanbags. And so somebody...
Is this a comedy act? What do you want? We want free food and beanbags. Now, that's not what we tell corporations that we want. We say, hey, we want better wages and mental health care support systems. And then the companies, which tend to be run by, older people who have had more time to establish themselves in the workforce, go, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to get you a break room with a ping pong table. To which our response is, gee, fucking thanks, this fixes nothing.
He articulates some sort of purpose, there's lots of free food and there's bean bags, and yet for some reason, they're still not happy. And that's because
those aren't the things that we fucking wanted or asked for in our jobs. We want work that is fulfilling. Who fucking doesn't? Having fulfilling work is a great thing. And, most people don't get to have fulfilling work. Wanting fulfilling jobs is good. I can't disagree with that. I think everyone should have the chance to find fulfilling work while we're stuck in a system where we have to work.
They're missing. There's a missing piece. What I've learned is that I can break it down into 4 pieces. Right? There are four things, 4 characteristics. One is parenting. The other one is technology. The third is impatience, and the fourth is environment. The generation that we call the millennials, too many of them grew up subject to, not my words, failed parenting strategies. Where, for example, they were told that they were special all the time. They were told that they could have anything they want in life.
I wasn't told these things. I was told that I could achieve things and learn things, and that I was a good person. But telling someone that they are special doesn't turn them into an entitled person. Telling someone that they can achieve what they send their mind to. I'm sorry, this is an American who's talking. Isn't that the American dream? That you can do anything that you put your mind and your effort to?
Just because they want it, right? They were told, some of them got into honors classes, not because they deserved it, but because their parents complained. And some of them got A's, not because they...
Parents being whingy and getting their children academically upgraded isn't a new occurrence.
They earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents. Some kids got...
Also, I would like to see some fucking data on how common what he is accusing of happening here is. This isn't an entire generational thing. I got into a selective course at a school, not because my parents complained, but because I did quite well on some tests. This was in primary school. And I actually switched primary schools to go and do that. It was just a couple of towns over. It wasn't hard to do.
Participation medals. You got a medal for coming in last, right?
So I never received a participation medal or anything. This gets cited constantly. And okay, so I got a piece of paper that said, congratulations, you completed your school certificate, and congratulations, you completed your HSC. I guess that is technically a participation award, but it is also a certificate of attainment because we'd completed something. And, I don't know if these participation medals are apocryphal or not. Did anyone in chat receive fucking participation medals? Were they just being handed out where I wasn't living? Was this actually a common thing? Or is this a boomer myth? And also, the participation awards, if they did exist, or insofar as they did exist, weren't for us. They were for parents who were insisting on their existence. That was the entitlement of boomers, not the entitlement of millennials. And then boomers have the fucking audacity to turn around and say, oh, millennials demanded participation awards. Oh, millennials were spoiled by being congratulated for just participating in a thing. Fuck off, mate. Insofar as that happened, if that happened, it wasn't our fucking choice. Jesus fuck.
Which...
All power to the Gen X's, story girl. You people got fucked over just as hard as we did. So homonyms, you didn't get participation awards. Cyber Opal, the closest you got to a participation medal was most improved, which is saying you weren't the best, but you tried the hardest. Yeah, that's fair enough.
The science we know is pretty clear, which is it devalues...
Yeah, I never saw a participation award in Australia. It might have been a thing in the US, maybe. But again, it's not something I've ever seen evidence of.
the medal and the reward for those who actually work hard, and it actually makes the person who comes in last feel embarrassed because they know they didn't deserve it, so it actually makes them feel worse, right? So you take this
I'd love to see some studies and research on that. You going to cite any? No.
group of people, and they graduate school and they get a job, and they're thrust into the real world, and in an instant they find out they're not special, their moms can't get them a promotion.
I mean, unless they're wealthy and wealthy and well-connected and can apply nepotism. There are people in every generation who get to use the nepotism power.
You get nothing for coming in last, and by the way, you can't just have it because you want it, right? And in an instant, their entire self-image is shattered. And so you have an entire generation that's growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations.
Now, it couldn't possibly be that millennials dealing with self-esteem issues and like dealing with depression could have anything to do with stuff like climate change and environmental catastrophe and having to deal with a generation of older people who are like, either, oh, this isn't a problem and it doesn't exist, or yes, it is a problem, but I'm going to be dead by the time it is, so I'm not going to do anything. Insofar as we do have issues around self-esteem and mental health, it's to do with genuine disenfranchisement and the fact that we have to deal with entitled shitbags like the boomers who did get handed a phenomenal economy by their parents on a silver platter, ran it into the fucking ground, and then laughed at us while they handed us the fucking scraps.
The other problem to
Again, not all boomers.
compound it is we're growing up in a Facebook, Instagram world. In other words, we're good at putting filters on things. We're good at showing people that life.
So, Lord Frittis, you're an older millennial. You think you might have had a participation award once for playing sports, maybe? Do you think receiving that affected you? I'm guessing not, considering as it is a, yeah, maybe once for playing sports thing.
The other problem to compound it is we're growing up in a Facebook, Instagram world. In other words, we're good at putting filters on things. We're good at showing people that life is amazing even though I'm depressed.
Now, there are issues, like mental health and self-esteem issues, that do come along with social media stuff. Now, these aren't new things. This has existed through the general media. There's been like problems with self-esteem and self-image issues like around magazines for, well, as long as we've had things like fashion magazines telling people that they're not thin enough, that they're not fit enough, that they're not good enough, that they need to change themselves in order to be perfect. It's just now some of those mechanisms have somewhat been outsourced to people like professional influencers. And people do tend to, on social media, kind of put their best foot forward to project their public image. I think people of all generations that use social media do this. However, I am more like, and when you see that, it can be easy to think, oh God, other people have a more perfect, more proactive life than me, when really everyone's got their shit going on. It's just not everyone talks about it. However, it is people from the younger generations, from what I have seen, this is anecdotal evidence, make of that what you will, but it is people from the younger generations who seem to be more likely to openly talk about their financial issues, about their mental health issues, about their struggles on social media to their friends. This is partially to, share the burden, to get advice, to get help from other people. And this, I think, is a positive thing. Like, talking to each other honestly about our mental health problems can help us to support each other through, well, our mental health problems, our physical health problems, our problems with jobs or finances, because everyone suffers them. But talking about these things openly can help us to support each other through these times, can help us to find solace in solidarity and to let people know that we need, some care and love from our comrades and our kin.
Pressed.
So, Lord Frutus, so your anecdotal experience, you're the kind of person who has a lot of problem in school due to being neuroatypical. And at Christmas, you were regularly reminded that you, quote, didn't deserve your presents. So no, your life wasn't affected by participation trophies. Damn, that sounds like a a stressful thing to have to go through. Family members can be fucking dicks sometimes. I hope that either you don't have to deal with those people as much, or that they have changed and aren't as assholey as they used to be.
Right? And so everybody sounds tough, and everybody sounds like they got it all figured out. And the reality is there's very little toughness, and most people don't have it figured out. And so when the more senior people say, well, what should we do? They sound like, this is what you got to do. And they have no clue. Right?
I'm sorry, but younger generations being certain that they know how to fix the world is not a new fucking phenomena. Again, to point at the boomers, the whole hippie movement, Woodstock, free love revolution, the massive anti-Vietnam protest movements, they were a generation that were convinced that they could change the world by taking enough acid and listening to enough psychedelic rock. It didn't fucking work. At least our solutions for how to change the world are a lot more goddamn practical.
So you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Through no fault of their own. Through no fault of their own, right? They were dealt a bad hand, right? Now let's add in technology. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 hi.
Social media does work using dopamine hits. A lot of things work by kind of exploiting our dopamine centers. Shopping is something that can, this is the reason we have things that have nice, colorful packaging, because it's our dopamine reward centers with the part of us that developed to want to go and pick berries and things. It's not an unusual thing. It is a mechanism that has been exploited by the tech world, but millennials and the generations that get lumped in with them aren't the only people who've been affected by this. There are a lot of older folks, especially now, who have been drawn into these social media rabbit warrens. Often the very people who told us when we were growing up that you can't believe everything that you see on the internet, and now have gone and bought wholesale into, conspiracy theory, anti-science, anti-logic bullshit. Cable television, cable news, talkback radio all works, gets people addicted to it by providing these fucking dopamine hits. And manipulation of that is insidious, but it doesn't just affect us.
Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly.
So kids have always been fucking vicious around kind of playground politics and who is friends with who and leaving people out in the cold. Yeah, I'll accept that social media stuff probably opens up an extra vector for that. I just want to check what the age range for the millennial generation is specifically. Here we are. So millennials. Wow, really? Millennials could be born as early as 1877 to 1995? Fair enough. 1977 to 1995. So look, I was born in 87. The closest I grew up with, the closest we had to social media when I was in high school was LiveJournal and MySpace. Oh god, my LiveJournal was cringy. I wrote bad poetry on that thing. Stuff like LiveJournal and MySpace, Facebook, and the really kind of highly targeted harvesting friends, constant dopamine hit social media stuff. didn't hit until about 2007 when I started going to university. So the oldest generation of millennials were born in 1995. So they would have been coming out of high school in 2013. So some of the youngest millennials would have been going through school with Facebook, but not most millennials. So again, this is lumping in the younger generations.
Highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers,
you know what else gives you dopamine hits? Reading a good book, playing a video game. Are we going to outlaw these things as well? Now, I think that, like, rather than saying youths can't use social media, maybe parents should, like, limit the amount of screen time that kids get. I can see an argument for that. But how about regulating the social media companies to force them to work in ways that are less efficient for us, but more useful, less efficient for them, but more useful and less damaging for us? Because it's not just youths, it's not just millennials, it's not just who the boomers think of as the kids and the young folk that are fucking affected by this.
Teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down.
So according to Critical Storms, to sign up to most social media, you need to be at least 13. Yeah, but like that's a tick a box to swear that you are of the right age, and come on, what kid using digital devices hasn't fucking done that? But at the same time, because of that, how are you going to ensure that kids don't use it? Like, are you going to require that everyone who signs up for a social media account like provides a copy of their like fucking driver's license or state issued ID? How are you going to deal with the massive data security risk that poses? Because someone's going to hack into it and, use that to commit a lot of fucking identity theft.
But that's basically what's happening. That's basically what's happening, right? That's basically what happened. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence. Why is this important? Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will.
His argument doesn't hold true here. I didn't have like social media like Facebook. I had fun like making friends and posting really bad poetry on my live journal, but that's not the same fucking thing as what he's talking about here.
Not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress. That's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks, right? What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids.
Okay, so another example of this kind of dopamine-abusing stuff that's going on is fucking Murdoch media cable news bullshit. So Fox News, Sky News, turning like otherwise normal, pleasant people into hate-fueled outrage machines. I'll propose a trade. We can take social media away from kids if we also take hate-filled cable news propaganda and talkback radio stations away from the boomers. Seem like a fair compromise?
Kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, But they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher.
Now, people can use those technologies, use those mediums to reach out to other people in their lives and get help. It can be easier to like make a post about your mental health problems and kind of have people respond to it, give you support, give you advice, reach out to you, than it is to like when you're in the grips of fucking depression, which is a paralyzing experience, than it is to like organize to meet up with all of these different fucking people, to manage to find the strength to bring up your problems and issues and talk to them directly about it. Yeah, I can understand the appeal of engaging in a more easy way to reach out for mental health. Now, yeah, too much time on Facebook does seem to make people depressed. There is an argument for that. The Zoomers don't seem to spend much time on Facebook. They're mostly spending time on TikTok. I'm sure this comes with its own problems, but
Rates of depression.
Again, rates of social media use, like social media use, isn't something that is specific to millennials.
Spend less time on Facebook. Alcohol is not bad. Too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun. Too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting.
But then what we need to be talking about is just kind of teaching people good habits around these things, socially enforcing, like, I guess, digital etiquette.
With people you're supposed to be listening to.
Although sometimes, like, you're in a situation that you just really don't want to be in. So, you know, you could use your magic phone portal to reach out to some other people and feel that sense of connection when you're not feeling the sense of connection to the people around you.
And speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care. That sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me.
Note how this is a video about millennials, and every millennial being drawn in this is a child. Millennials are, so the youngest millennials are 26. But this is a video about children.
Right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted.
Urist, this is a channel that draws over speeches. I'm well aware of that, but it's still it is a stylistic choice that has been decided, and these things in conjunction produce the final propaganda that we're observing here.
Right? If you wake up and you check your phone before.
So, Dis, you think this talk might be quite old? Well, that would be fair.
Before you say
that would be fair.
To your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse. Right? So you have a generation growing up with lower self-esteem that doesn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress.
Again, lower self-esteem, I don't think is because things like participation trophies or social media use or being told by our parents that we're special. Actually, being told by people that you're special probably raises your self-esteem, raises your sense of self-worth if you internalize and believe it. The lower self-esteem for our generation tends to come because we have come into a very unstable job market, a housing market that it is almost impossible for us to fucking buy into. And we're facing down the barrel of climate catastrophe that prior generations could have done shit about before and now largely refuse to acknowledge is even a fucking problem.
Right? Now you add in the sense of impatience. Right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week, right?
Some shows you do have to wait week to week to week to week. Also, what the fuck is wrong with receiving something shortly after you order it. I grew up in a time where every week we got the newspaper, which had the television schedule in it, and we would go and like crowd around the television schedule with a fucking highlighter and go, I want to watch this, I want to watch this. Oh, we can't watch that this week. We've got dinner with the Williamses. Oh, but it's the latest episode. I'm sorry, you can't watch it. We're gonna be out having dinner with the Williamses. And tough fucking titties, you don't get to see that episode. It's gone forever. You forget that something's on, it's gone into the ether. There was no YouTube at this point. There was no way that we could go and find that and watch that. Media on demand is a much better way of consuming media. Rather than having to, what's the problem with the youth of today? They don't have to wait through the arcane process of television programming. They don't have to sit there while adverts play every 5 fucking minutes in the middle of their television programs, extending a 20-minute show out to 35 to 40 minutes in length. Fuck off, mate.
I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season, right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date, you don't even have to learn how to be like, hey.
Critical Storms, I am an old wizard. Well, I'm approaching a middle-aged wizard, but I will be an old wizard. I'm looking forward to the transformation.
You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no and says no when you mean no, and yes when you... You don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud.
Okay, you do still need social skills when it comes to dating. Like, there's, the prevalence of things like dating apps means that, like, finding someone who might be up to have a bit of a flirt is easier. Has this person never, like, tried to actually meet people on dating apps? It's hard work. It's hard work, like, finding someone you're interested in, communicating the things that might make them interested in you. Then you need to meet up physically and, see if there is chemistry there, which often there isn't. It's not like we've just... Okay, there are some people who are just like, I just want to hook up and have sex. Cool. Those aren't, I think, the majority. Most people, like, you still need social skills when there are dating apps going on. And not everyone... Okay, so even if dating apps do, like, reduce the social skill threshold for, being able to find someone to hook up with or go on a date with, so fucking what? That just means that there's, like, more people get to participate in the relationship and sexual marketplace. That's not a fucking problem.
Right? You don't have to learn the social coping mechanisms, right? Everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification. Except job satisfaction and strength of relationships, there ain't no app for that. They are slow, meandering, uncomfortable, messy processes. And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They've just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. And I sit down with them and I go, how's it going? They go, I think I'm going to quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months.
Yeah, cool. People should know their worth. People should know their value. If your current job isn't fucking doing it for you, find a job that does. Find a path of your life that brings you joy and satisfaction. The problem with kids today is that they don't just want to toil away in suffering for decades before they have a midlife crisis and go and marry a young model. I mean, really, what are they thinking?
It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And
again, every fucking generation has its idealistic people who want to change the world. The boomers had the fucking hippie movement, had like I said before, the counterculture Woodstock movement. Do you think these were people who were happy, like, washing dishes and flipping burgers? No. A fuck ton of them went and got, like, shitty second-hand vans, as many psychedelics as they could fit into an esky, and just fucking road tripped across the country, doing what they could to get by and seeking greater meaning and a way to change the world. This isn't a new thing. Some people are dissatisfied with the work that gets put in front of them. Some of them will go off and do other shit. That's okay.
What this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love, or job fulfillment, joy.
Now, I know a lot of people in my generation who put in a lot of work into love, a lot of work into their relationships. And as a generation, I think we've come to learn to like really value and put energy into not just our romantic relationships, but our non-romantic relationships, our platonic romances, exploring the depth of our positive feelings for our friends and confidants. This idea that we are a lazy, entitled generation when it comes to love, if you're holding us up against the boomer humor, ha ha ha, I hate my wife crowd, fuck no. We put serious work into our relationships. We put serious fucking work into, doing the best we can to make sure that we have the most fulfilling lives possible when it comes to matters of romance, when it comes to matters of friendship. And part of that, I think, actually comes from, especially when it comes to like the maintaining of friendships over time and distance, I think may have actually benefited from our embrace of social media as a technology. There's a lot of people, some people in this very chat actually, for whom, like, in days past, before we had the use of social media stuff, we would have met each other and we'd have drifted apart and gotten on with our lives. But because we have these connections that we've forged over social media, sharing little parcels and packages of our digital lives, our victories and our stumblings, our joys and our woes, we've managed to grow closer together than we ever would have before and maintained those relationships over the course of time and distance that that would have been impossible in previous times and generations. Absolutely. Pixel, if Gothy is still here, if Meow's still around, Kibosh Malarkey, a few other people as well, like who I know IRL, no shade or shame to any of them, but we probably would have just drifted apart as our lives move in other directions. But we haven't. We've built and maintained this beautiful constellation of friendships, which I fucking love.
Love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things. All of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite.
And I'm sorry, like, maybe this speech was made, like, when millennials were younger, but holy shit, have you seen the skills that millennials have developed? I know people who are game designers, musicians, artists, motion graphics designers, phenomenal costume designers, burlesque artists, performers, coders and programmers, fucking dancers, office managers. There are so many people in this generation who have found skills and interests that they have thrown themselves into. No, this doesn't wash out. If this was an older video, your predictions failed. If this is an older speech, your predictions failed. If this is a newer speech, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous.
Oh god, this is from a TED Talk? This video, I think, just came out. But if this is from an older TED Talk, that would make sense.
Arduous and long and difficult. And if you don't ask for help and learn that skill set, you will fall off the mountain, or you will, the worst case scenario, and we're already seeing it, the worst case scenario is we're seeing an increase in suicide rates, We're seeing an increase in this generation. We're seeing an increase in accidental deaths due to drug overdoses. We're seeing more and more.
So the increase in suicide rates, again, suicide rates, depression, stuff like that, we live in an increasingly bleak world. We have to live under increasingly crushing late stage capitalism that kicks us in the teeth in a way that it didn't for the boomers coming up through the corporate boom of the 1980s.
Kids drop out of school or take leaves of absence due to depression. Unheard of. This is really bad. The best case scenario, those are all bad cases, right? The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy. They'll never really find deep.
So the best case scenario is that this generation will go through life and never find joy. Motherfucker, I am full of fucking joy. I have fought my depression and won. I have found things in my life that bring me enjoyment. My circus, my miniatures, my friends, my family, my politics. I have found so much in life to bring me happiness. And I look around at my friends of a similar age to me, and I see the same thing echoed again and again and again, strengthened by our friendships that we have built and shared over time, and strengthened by our ability to share the things that we love with each other, to share the moments, and our ability to share our sadness and to reach out and get help and get advice from a wide range of different people that have different life experiences. And as much as social media has its negative sides, those are some positive sides of it too.
Deep fulfillment in work or in life. They'll just waft through life and it'll be just, it's fine. How's your job? It's fine. The same as yesterday.
Yeah, cool. Most of us don't find the core of our meaning comes from the work that we do toiling away from for a capitalist overlord. Every now and then, some people do end up with jobs that they really genuinely enjoy. That's fantastic. I'm trying to build this up into that very same thing here. But saying, oh yeah, my job's fine, I don't really engage with it, whatever, it's just something I do. Yeah, you fucking live for your after hours, live for the weekend, live for the times in which you get to see your friends and do the shit you find engaging. There is nothing wrong with that.
How's your relationship? It's fine. That's the best case scenario, which leads me to the fourth point.
No, I am living proof that that is not the best case scenario for fucking millennials. Jesus Christ. What a despondent and myopic view of the youth.
Which is environment. Which is we're taking this amazing group of young, fantastic kids who were just dealt a bad hand. It's no fault of their own. And we put them in corporate environments that care more about the numbers than they do about the kids.
Finally, he is pointing out something that is an actual fucking problem.
They care more about the short-term gains than the long-term life of this young human being. We care more about the year than the lifetime, right?
J numbers, 100% divorce your identity from your stolen labor? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Right? And so we are putting them in corporate environments that aren't helping them build their confidence, that aren't helping them learn the skills of cooperation, that aren't helping them overcome the challenges of a digital world and finding more balance, that isn't helping them overcome the need to have instant gratification and teach them the joys and impact and the fulfillment you get from working hard on something for a long time that cannot be done in a month.
But we taught ourselves these things. We taught ourselves to find hobbies and interests and passions that we could engage with. And in many cases, this was facilitated by the internet, by our digital environments. It would be impossible to count the number of people who have been able to learn new skills that they never would have been able to pick up if not for the wealth of information and knowledge sharing that comes with the internet and, knowing how to navigate it, knowing where to find stuff, knowing where and how to ask questions and request help. This is all really fucking cool and great shit.
Month or even in a year. And so we're thrusting to them in corporate environments, and the worst part about it is they think it's them. They blame themselves. They think it's them who can't deal. And so it makes it all worse.
No. We know that the problem is corporations and capitalism. Like, we're pretty fucking upfront about that, hey?
It's not. I'm here to tell them it's not them. It's the corporations. It's the corporate environments. It's the total lack of good leadership in our world today that is making them feel the way they do. They were dealt a bad hand, and I hate to say it, but it's the company's responsibility.
This is like the most progressive video I have seen from this channel yet. It took until like at the very last minute of the video to finally go, you know what, maybe corporations are fucking things up. Like, the rest of the video was just relentlessly bashing on millennials, concocting problems, or just going along with the general narrative of, you know, what millennial issues are. The popular narrative of, oh, they're just entitled, they've been spoiled, they're used to this culture of instant gratification. And finally, a little bit of accuracy and truth. But even in this, he's not like properly charting our responses and beliefs around things like, you know, corporate wage slave relationships.
Sucks to be you. Like, we have no choice, right? This is what we got, and I wish that society and their parents did a better job. They didn't. So we're getting them in our companies, and we now have to pick up the slack. We have to work extra hard to figure out the ways that we build their confidence. We have to work extra hard to find ways to teach them the social skills that they're missing out on.
Except we didn't miss out on social skills. I'm a millennial. I got plenty of fucking social skills. I developed both online and offline social skills, for fuck's sake. What an infantilizing presentation. Yeah, Urus, this was just a very complicated way of saying millennials bad.
For more interesting videos like this one, please subscribe.
That was fucking infuriating, chat. Jesus fucking Christ. Some goddamn people. Oh, sorry, I do want to check. Okay, so this video itself was from 2017. So I apologize, I spread some false news. But it was from 5 years ago. So I would have been in my late 20s. So the millennial generation, okay, this seems more reasonable. So 1981 to 1996. At the time that this video was initially released, the oldest millennials would have been 36. And the youngest millennials would have been 21. So very infantilizing to everyone who wasn't like a 21-year-old millennial. Fucking hell. Ridiculous. And 26 is still easily 15 years in the workforce. 36 is easily 15 years in the workforce. Abso-fucking-lutely. So the oldest version of the video looks like it was a talk show. Thank you for that, Dis. And when was this from? 2016, so still like 20 to 35, just painting an entire fucking generation with this brush of lazy, entitled, spoiled whingers. Disgusting.